This is Anakin. It's the year 3000. The Empire attacked planet Earth and enslaved humanity. So, he begged us for one thing, to help him build a weapon strong enough to destroy a galactic empire, a Death Star. We're going to use real-life science to build it, solving one impossible science problem at a time. But there's a twist. The same secret that makes this weapon work will cause Anakin to spiral into madness, and it's small enough to fit in your pocket. Humanity gave Anakin a nearly impossible task to build a space station that's larger than most moons, yet doesn't collapse under its own weight. Here's the problem. A hollow ball this big should crush itself, because nothing that big and empty can maintain its shape by itself. Here's how we fix this. When you push down on a straight beam, it bends. Now, push down on a triangle made of the same beam. It won't budge, because every side locks the other two in place. Scientists call this a geodesic structure, and it's used everywhere, like bridges, soccer balls, and even theoretical Dyson spheres. Therefore, Anakin's crew builds the skeleton of the Death Star with these triangles. It looks fine, but at this moment, the Empire attacked again. So, Anakin skips months of stress testing. Just this once, he told himself. Spoiler, this won't be the last time. Right now, the Death Star is just an empty shell floating in space. It still needs to become a livable station inside, and that's where things get strange. Anakin's crew finished building the interior, floors, rooms, and hallways inside the shell, but the crew can only float through it uselessly. Here's how we create artificial gravity. There is a problem. Gravity comes from mass, but getting Earth-level gravity would need enough rock to completely fill the ship, leaving no room for the crew. So instead, Anakin's crew compresses an entire moon's worth of asteroids into a tiny hyperdense sphere, the same way a collapsing star crushes itself into a white dwarf. This allows the core to have the gravity of a moon, while only being the size of a living room. Now, they can walk inside the ship. However, because all that mass sits in one point, gravity gets stronger the nearer you are to the core. If you get too close, you get crushed. So, Anakin seals it off, hiding it from everyone else. During the sealing process, we noticed something strange. The core kept getting heavier on its own, and nobody knew why. We'll get to this mystery later. Gravity solved, but the next chapter is where things get eerie, because the compressed core can do so much more than just create gravity. To destroy a galactic empire, Anakin needs a weapon strong enough to do so. But the question is, how much energy does it take to destroy a planet? Every planet holds itself together with its own gravity, called gravitational binding energy. To shatter one, you need to overpower that pull completely, and the energy required dwarfs everything humanity has ever produced, combined. Even nuclear power plants, our best energy source, can only turn 0.1% of matter into usable energy. Picture a battery the size of a car. The usable energy would only be the size of a coin. The rest just sits there, wasted. However, Anakin has a solution. When matter falls onto something dense, it speeds up fast, and speed turns into energy. Basically, the denser the object, the harder it pulls, so more energy gets released. Scientists call this accretion efficiency. This means the core, which is crushed to a white dwarf's density, is already beating nuclear power plants. So, Anakin compresses it further, crushing even more asteroids, and the accretion efficiency climbs. An engineer asks him if this is still within safe limits. Anakin ignores him, but how far can they actually push this? The energy output keeps climbing, but none of it matters until Anakin's team turns it into an actual weapon. Here's how they recreate the Death Star's iconic green super laser. First, Anakin commands robots to surround the core with magnets and cage it in place. Then, they add a feeding system that drops matter towards it on command. Here's why. When you drop a ball, it barely bounces, but drop it off a building and it cracks the ground. The core does the same thing to matter, just far more extreme. Its pull is so strong that anything falling towards it slams in faster than a bullet, and all that speed bursts out as heat and light the instant it hits. Basically, the denser the core, the more violent that burst becomes. As for the aiming mechanism, the same magnets holding the core in place can also funnel that burst of energy into a single direction. They test it by firing the super laser at an asteroid. is completely vaporized. But somewhere inside that core, something just changed, and nobody knows what they actually just made. Well, actually, Anakin knows, but he's hiding it from everyone else. The weapon works, but running it creates a new problem: heat. In space, there's no air to carry heat away. On Earth, hot objects cool by warming the air around them, but in a vacuum, there's nothing to transfer the heat to. So, heat can only escape through one way, by glowing. This is a real physics phenomenon called black body radiation. There's a second rule at play as well. How fast something sheds heat depends on surface area, not size. More exposed surface means more heat glowing away every second. Therefore, Anakin's crew builds massive radiator panels across the hull, maximizing the surface area so that more heat can be released. This is the same principle real spacecraft use today. It works, and the core stays cool enough to keep firing. But there's a trade-off. Radiators this large can't be armored or they'd trap heat instead of releasing it. So during combat, Anakin has to retract them, hoping the fight ends before they start melting. However, here's where things get very strange. Even when the radiators are fully retracted, the core releases far less heat than the math predicts. Anakin's crew starts panicking, but Anakin doesn't, because he already knows why the numbers are wrong, and he's known since the beginning. Think of matter like a sponge. It's mostly empty space, and held up by a thin structure, which are atoms. Squeeze that sponge hard enough, and eventually, there's no empty space left to crush. Every object has an exact size where this happens, called its Schwarzschild radius. During that weapon test, the core quietly crossed that limit. It didn't just get denser, it caved in completely, becoming so compressed that even light can't escape. A black hole was formed, sitting at the center of the Death Star. This explains everything. Remember the core getting heavier in Chapter 2? Anakin had been secretly feeding it extra mass the whole time, and the heat problem is because black holes swallow energy instead of releasing it steadily. But black holes don't stay the same size. It's been growing ever since it was formed. Anakin then makes a choice that crosses the point of no return. He starts feeding it entire planets, because the Death Star needs to stay stronger than the Empire's forces, and if he's the only one who knows the truth, he's the only one who can never be replaced. The Death Star works exactly as planned. Anakin attacks the Empire's fleet and successfully ends 100 years of slavery. Humanity is free. Anakin is worshipped as a hero. However, he doesn't hand over control of the Death Star to the people. He claims it's too dangerous. But here's the real reason. Whoever controls a weapon like this controls everything. And Anakin isn't ready to give that up. The man who built a weapon to free humanity became the very thing humanity fears. And underneath it all, Anakin keeps feeding the core, slaughtering entire civilizations in the process. He wanted to end an empire, but he ended up becoming one.